Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Jules Alexander, and welcome back to the Backlot Review. Now for today's show, I've got my good friend Evan to help me review the movie.
Yo, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Today's movie is one of the greatest, or probably the greatest, female-led superhero movie. And of course, I'm talking about... Roll the clip! In this movie, based on the DC superhero Wonder Woman, we get to find out how Wonder Woman came from the island of Themyscira, where she is used to growing up around her Amazon sisters, how she comes to the land of man and ends up entwined in the Great War. So with that being said, let's just jump right into the good. Alright, so one of the first things I thought was really good about this movie was the Amazonian fight choreography. I just thought they moved really well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And like, you know, they were just kind of like flying, like not really flying through the air, but they were like on ropes and...
Yeah, it was a unique fighting style that I hadn't really seen in any like superhero movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't like blunt force, it was more like majestic and artistic, which was... It
really felt like it really felt like more like a dance in a way, and
yeah,
you know, that's how they overcome the fact. You know, there's a point in the movie where some men invade the island of Themyscira, so of course the Amazons attack the men and everything, and to combat the fact that these guys have, you know, machine guns and pistols and stuff like that, they really use their arrows and their spears to the best of their ability, and it's really more like a dance rather than like a full-on fist fight, and I really thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And just like the different ways that they use, like at one point, Robin Wright's character, she stuck her arrows, instead of in a quiver, she stuck her arrows in the ground so that she could move around more and she could kneel and stuff like that. I thought that was just a really creative way to show how different these Amazonians can fight and what makes them the warrior race.
Yeah.
Next thing I wanted to talk about was really just kind of the contrast between Paradise Island and London, you know, the outside world. I really thought it was cool how in Paradise Island it's always bright and sunny, and you know, the water is as blue as it can be and everything, and it almost glows. And then you get into London and it's all drabby, and you know, they make a funny joke where Diana's like, "This is your world, it's hideous," and he's like, "Yeah, it's not for everybody."
Not for everyone.
You know, that was a really cool contrast. And not just that, but just the whole fish out of water dynamic with Diana and Steve really brought a lot of charm and comedy to this movie that would have felt otherwise dry and humorless without that sort of context. So I really felt like it helped serve the story being in that setting, because then you could have Diana going through and she's like trying to get to the war and everything. Yeah. She doesn't really understand why things are like this and why human beings are like this, and I really thought that was a really fun and different direction to go in with the DCEU right now.
I also really like the transition, how they transitioned Wonder Woman from the Paradise Island to London, and how like almost innocent she was in the, you know, the modern world or whatever, and how she didn't understand how certain things worked, and you know, when she was trying on the dresses, like how she battle. Which I really appreciate. I thought that was really realistic, and that really helped me to buy into the character more of who Wonder Woman is. And I don't know, for whatever reason, just like that innocence and like just like that happy-go-lucky, like we're gonna save the world kind of feel that I got from that interaction.
Yeah, that was a really fun element to add to her character. Another thing that really made this movie stand out from the other DC movies so far is that it was very much a contained story arc. And there was literally, other than like a little bit of a mention at the beginning and at the very end, there was very little mention of any other DC property or anything like that. You didn't hear anything about Superman or Batman, obviously because it's set in the past and stuff like that. But going into these superhero movies, you're really kind of expecting that sort of thing. And I thought it was really refreshing that we didn't really have any of that to worry about. So
I agree.
And then just the overall visuals of the movie were really good. The colors really popped for as much as they could in that sort of era. They definitely toned it down a bit in certain scenes because it is World War I, so it's like it's not exactly the brightest time period right now. But at the same time, Wonder Woman's costume definitely popped a lot more color-wise in this movie than in Batman vs. Superman. And just like the golden lasso, that was definitely a really cool contrast to see in the kind of gray, London, dark, World War I setting and everything. When that thing came out, it really was like, it was bright, it was super flashy and everything like that. So I thought that was really cool. And I think my favorite scene in this movie, and maybe my favorite scene of the entire year, was the No Man's Land scene.
Yeah,
the famous scene from the trailer where she comes out on No Man's Land. Steve Trevor and the guys are like, wait, you can't go out there, whatever. And she's out there with her shield. She's blocking bullets. She's throwing popping grenades out of the way and everything so that they can get across. That was probably the most inspiring scene I've seen in any movie this year.
I love that drone shot of when the turret was like firing at the shield and like, the bullets are ricocheting.
Exactly. You just see her like, she's a warrior.
Cool shot,
So yeah, just that entire sequence was just so amazing. And then of course leading up right after that, we get to the scene where she's fighting the village with the golden, she's slinging the lasso around, wrapping dudes up, and she's throwing tanks and cars and stuff like that. And there's even a funny moment where the men all like launch her up to take down the sniper.
Yeah.
And instead of just her knocking him out with the shield or whatever, the whole top of the building is gone, just completely destroyed. Like they threw a bomb in there or something. It was just that whole I think it was like a good 3 to 4 minutes was just perfect Wonder Woman.
Another thing I appreciated was kind of the backstory of who Wonder Woman is. I don't really know a whole lot about the comics. I don't know them nearly as well as you do. But the thing I appreciated in Iron Man 1, which is like one of my favorite movies of all time, is that backstory and how Iron Man became the person that we all know he is. And so it was like that same thing in Wonder Woman. You kind of got to see who she was and her journey as a warrior and as a person. And it was just like cool to get some more of that backstory and to understand who that character is more. And I totally bought in. I love the character, and I really appreciated the just explaining where she came from and who she is, and what her culture is like, and as an Amazonian and all that stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, of course. All right, so as good as we thought this movie was, it did have a couple of issues that I did want to point out. So let's jump into the bad.
Doomsday. Darkseid. He's replicated the monster.
Then we draw a line in the sand and hold them here.
Okay, so unfortunately, I really didn't care much for towards the beginning of the movie. There's some scenes with a younger Diana kind of going through life on Themyscira and how bad she wants to become a warrior, and her mom is like, you're not going to become a warrior. You're not meant to be a warrior. You're a princess or whatever. So act like a princess. And all she wants to do is train with Robin Wright's character and everything. But she's just really annoying about it, to be honest. And it may just come down to the choice of child actor that they chose. Some of those kids just really aren't what you would want them to be as actors.
I can see like where they're trying to explain like this is in her blood, like she's a warrior. But it just came across as being annoying and didn't really. I don't know. For me, it just like didn't really fit and kind of gave me the wrong impression of like she's this annoying little girl, trying to rebel and stuff instead of this root in her roots of being a warrior and stuff like that. I felt like they didn't communicate that super well. Right.
And to add on to that, I really thought that throughout the movie, the pacing in general was just kind of slow. Just to get from one event to the next was like. It just kind of took its time, and again, you don't want to speed through things because there are going to be things that people miss, and you don't want your movie to be like rushed and everything like that into the story. But at the same time, I could count the amount of times that in the middle of a conversation, like Steve or maybe not Diana, but like Steve would pause and like kind of give his expression and everything like that. It's like, okay, cool. Chris Pine has great eyes and everything. That's awesome. But let's get on with the conversation so we can move on to the next thing.
One of the things I didn't really like that much was some of the visual effects were just like a little cheesy. Some of the explosions weren't done super well. Like, we're like right on the verge of just being extremely crappy and just like real hard for me to get past. And even some of the fight scenes, like, it was cool. They like try to go into slow-mo to make it look more realistic, but yeah, some of it was just like it was tough to like really get into, like buy into the scene and everything.
Right.
And even like some of her jumps, she'd like just like leap, and it just like it looked weird. Like, I don't know what it was, and even when she'd land and stuff, it just like it wasn't very realistic and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the visual effects were great, but yeah, there were a few that were a little crappy.
Right. All right, so now that we've hit the good and the bad, I bet you guys know what time it is. It's time for some spoilers.
You have to stop. If you pull that ship free, half the mountain's gonna come down.
So I'm not going to let you do it. Out of my way, Jumbo. Ow! That hurt.
So one of the really big plot twists of the movie was that, so the whole movie, Diana is really looking for Ares, the god of war. And so going out throughout the whole movie, she's like, I have to find Ares, and I think this guy is Ares, and I'm gonna go kill him. And really who I'm talking about is Danny Houston's character, Ludendorff. She thinks that he is Ares, you know, like the embodiment of Ares, or him taking on a human form and stuff like that. She hunts him down, and like they get to like the final battlefield. So yeah, she finally defeats Ludendorff. She stabs him in the chest or whatever, and he's dead. And she's like, yes, I beat Ares, and you know, this happened. But then it turns out that one of her allies throughout the movie, who's really been helping her and Steve, you know, get to where they need to get to throughout the movie, David Thewlis's character is actually Ares. And so, you know, this whole movie, he's helping them out and helping them get to where they need to get to in World War I. And then he shows up at the end of the movie, and it turns out that he is actually the god of war. I thought that was a really interesting twist and everything, because the whole movie is really setting it up that Danny Houston is...
It was like clear.
Yeah, it was like clearly this guy is definitely Ares.
That
and, you know,
twist, though, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was such a cool twist and everything like that. And then just the whole design of Ares was really cool. I wanted to save that for the spoiler section, because when you do see it, it's not as blue as it is in the comic books. Like, it's straight up like crayon blue in the comic book. But yeah, in this, it's really definitely like a gunmetal bluish kind of thing, whereas like it definitely feels more natural to this world and everything like that, especially since it's a nighttime battle scene. So, but like the helmet looks pretty much just like it does. The only thing he's really missing is like he usually runs around like a giant sword and stuff like that, and he has a cape and stuff. But other than that, he was pretty much Ares from the comic book. So, and then during that battle scene, of course, you know, it's kind of expected that Steve Trevor isn't really gonna make it through. We find out what happens to him, and he does the whole typical like sacrificial hero sacrifice and stuff like that, where he goes in the warplane that's going to drop off all the mustard gas that Dr. Poison has been working on, and he blows that up in midair so it doesn't affect anybody, sacrificing his life. I kind of had an issue with this scenario just because you know, it's pretty much exactly like the Captain America situation, where it's like the good guy goes up and it's in the war and everything. It's the one thing that can, you know, end the war or whatever. Of course, it's in a plane, and he blows it up and sacrifices his life and everything. Only difference is that Steve Trevor obviously isn't a super soldier, so he doesn't quite make it through that. But yeah, it just kind of felt cliche to me. You know, I feel like they could have done something a little bit different. But other than that, the scene was set up really well.
Yeah.
Because at one point, Ares like blows Wonder Woman back or something explodes in front of Wonder Woman, and so like her hearing isn't right. So Steve is like going off to, you know, do this thing. He knows he's not going to come back and everything, so he's saying his goodbyes and stuff. But Diana can't hear him, and so you're just kind of like, she's like trying to mouth what he's trying to say. Yeah. She doesn't really hear him or whatever.
Yeah, that was cool.
He hands her his watch, and then runs off and does the thing. So she doesn't even know what he's gonna do because she can't hear him. And then after he dies and everything like that, we go back to that scene and you hear what he said to her, and that he said that he loved her and everything like that. But yeah, I just thought they really could have chosen a different way for him to either sacrifice himself or, I mean, because it wasn't the sacrifice that I had a problem with. It was just the fact that it was literally the same thing that like Captain America does, both in the comic books and in the first Avenger movie. So it could have ended a little bit differently, but overall I thought it was a pretty decent death for such a charismatic character throughout the movie. So, alright guys, so overall I thought Wonder Woman was an excellent entry in the DC Cinematic Universe, and it definitely redeemed some of the sour taste that we had from last year's DC movies with Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad both not really doing well. And so I definitely thought this was a very refreshing entry in this series of movies. So I'm going to personally give it 5 out of 5 golden lassos. What did you think, Evan?
I'd probably give it a 3.5 to 4 out of 5, probably.
Okay. I can handle that. Now, of course, guys, this is a comic book movie. It's one of the biggest comic book movies of the year. It's a really big deal. And so, of course, I'm still wearing my rose-colored glasses. So, what that means is that next week, I'll have a follow-up review dealing with my final feelings about this movie after, a week of, calming my excited nerves down and possibly seeing the movie another time or maybe even 2 more times. So yeah, just come back for that video to see what I really thought about the movie. I really did enjoy this movie, and I was really happy to see how it is. So I'm super excited for Justice League later this year.
That's gonna be good.
Yeah, especially after this movie and how well it's been doing. So yeah, and I just wanted to thank my friend Evan for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. But yeah, with that being said, this is Jules Alexander, and I want you guys to remember to go out there and live fearlessly.